Want to welcome everybody to the September 1st Planning Commission meeting. Could we please have the opening announcements, please?
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the District Court.
Thank you. Next item is a roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Bill Johnson?
Here.
Fox? Here. McKay? Here. Green?
Here.
Jewell?
Here.
Blick?
Here.
Nix?
Here.
Foster?
Here.
Warren is absent. Joe Johnson?
Here.
Miles?
Present.
Hartman?
Here.
Cunningham?
Here.
Williams Bay is absent. Williams Bay. Sir, I show 12 members present and 2 absent.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is election of officers. First one we're going to deal with is the new chair. Normally, we usually have Ms. Fox move up into that position. But with that said, is there any other nominations besides Ms. Fox? Anybody else? Seeing none, Mrs. Fox is the only one, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? That carries 12-0, and I'll let her take the meeting over. Well, I want to thank everybody for the support from the commission to the staff, especially the attorneys to keep me out of trouble.
I'd just like to say, Bill, you did an excellent job. Thank you.
I would like to say we need to have a round of applause for Mr. Johnson for a very robust year. with a lot of virtual things to learn, so thank you, and for teaching me everything I know. So the next item of business will be to call for election of a vice chair who also serves as the Advanced Planning Committee chairperson, and I would like to enter a nomination of Robert Duell. Could I have a second?
I'll second that.
Are there any other nominations? We'll call for a vote on that nomination. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And we'll show that as a 12-0 vote. Thank you, Mr. Dill, for will you accept that nomination?
Didn't really get a chance.
Right, you got to vote first, then you have some pressure to give. The next thing we'll do is call for an approval of the minutes of the August 18th meeting of the MAPC. I note that Mr. Warren and Ms. Foster were absent from that meeting. Could I entertain a motion?
Second.
Wait a minute. I have a comment to make about it before we vote.
Okay,
All right. The last item regarding the Sedgwick County, the appeals board that was going to be put together was left off of the minutes. There's no recording of that item. Should we approve them if it's incomplete?
can we have legal make a statement on that item? Does that need to be a part of the agenda and minutes? We're having a consultation here, Commissioner Cunningham, in case you can't see.
Oh, that's fine. It was on the agenda and it's not recorded. That's why I just
Okay,
wondered.
Scott?
Sure. From a staff perspective, it's not a public hearing item, so the record maybe is not as crucial as that. However, we do want to make sure that it reflects that there was a conversation about it. So we're going to look at those minutes and we'll bring you back updated minutes, if you don't mind, at the next meeting.
All right. We will take a formal vote on those meeting minutes at the next meeting.
If you're comfortable doing that. You can also choose to approve them today, and then we can get you revised ones at the next. You've got either option.
Maybe that's good while our memories are close. Let's, who made the motion? I missed that.
Joe Johnson.
I'll go with that.
Joe Johnson made a motion to approve the minutes that we have today with a second from Ms. Miles. So I'm going to call for a vote on those minutes, recognizing that we'll have an addendum at the next meeting. And thank you, Ms. Cunningham, for bringing that up. Let's call for a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
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 Any opposed, recognizing the addendum's coming? Hearing none, minutes are approved, 10-02.
Madam Chair, it would actually be 11-01. Mr. Warren is not here today.
Oh, right. There we go. Thank you. See, you knew I'd do something wrong right in the beginning. Next, we'll go through the agenda. First, I want to ask if any commissioners have a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda today. Do you have a conflict, Mr. Johnson, on one of the items? 3.3? We'll let you state it when we get to that then. Just want to make sure we're conscious of those. Now we'll go through the items on the agenda one by one to see if we can take any of these items on consent. For the subdivision items, 2022-00040, located generally south of US 54 and 135th Street. Anyone want to hear that item? Anyone in the commission? Any commissioner virtually want to hear that item?
I just have a question for staff.
Staff question. Are there any persons from the public in our room that want to hear this item? Anyone virtual from the public who wants to hear this item? Can we take the staff comment question now? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Blick.
Yeah, just have a question for staff. Has anybody contacted in opposition on this? at staff's office.
Neil Straw, planning staff. No, I have not received any comments.
Great, that's all the question I have. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take that item 2.1 on consent. Item 2.2, subdivision 2022-00042, located near West MacArthur Road and 119th Street West. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Any commissioner virtually want to hear this case? Anyone from the public present want to hear this case? Anyone from the public virtually want to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll take item 2.2 on consent. Item 2.3, subdivision 2022-00043, located near North Amadon and west of 29th Street. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Any commissioner virtually want to hear this case? Anyone in chamber want to hear this case? Anyone from the public virtually attending want to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll take it on consent. Item 2.4, subdivision 2022-00044, east of 167th Street and south of 47th Street. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Anyone on the commission virtually want to hear this case? Anyone in chambers want to hear this case? Anyone participating virtually from the public want to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll take that on consent, and I'd entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I've got a question for legal. I had to abstain on this one because I joined the meeting late, and so I didn't vote on it. I don't need to abstain at this point now, do I?
Jeff Anson, Assistant City Attorney. No, you came in, actually, because you've received the packet. You would have the information, the staff report, and there was nobody that spoke against it, but you were there if there had been at the time, so you're free to vote today.
Well, that's what I thought, but I wanted to clear that for the record. And with that, I would move that we approve items 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Green, a second by Commissioner Hartman. Any discussion from the commission? I would then call for a vote. Everyone in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes 12-0. Vacation items. Vacation item 2021-00046 has been deferred indefinitely per the agent. So we'll not hear that item. Item 3.2, vacation item 2022-00022. Is there anyone on the commission who would like to hear this item? Yes, Mr.
I'm
Johnson.
going to abstain from this.
Okay. I have an abstention, so we'll be voting on that separately. Do we need to, anyone virtually who wants to hear the item?
I just have a question for staff at the end.
Okay. Any member of the public in chambers who wants to hear this item? Anyone participating virtually who would like to hear this item? Hearing none, we have a staff question on this. 3.2.
Yeah, same question as before for staff is, have they been contacted any opposition on this?
No, we have not received any comments in opposition.
Okay.
Thank
Did you
That's
hear
the
the
only question I have.
response? Did you hear the response, Josh? Okay.
Chair? I just have a clarification for Mr. Bill Johnson. Are you abstaining from 3.2, the one on North Greenwich, or do you need to abstain from 3.3, the one on South Seneca?
Well, my agenda shows it's 3.2.
There was I apologize, there was a revised agenda.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep, so Bill Johnson's abstention will be for item 3.3.
Okay.
Vacation 2022-23.
Thank you, Philip.
Okay. So item 3.2, we can hear on consent. Item 3.3, vacation item 2022-00023, located near South Seneca and West MacArthur Road. Mr. Johnson will abstain. Is there any other commissioner who would like to hear this case? Any commission virtual who would like to hear this case? Any member of the public present who would like to hear this case? Any member of the public virtual who would like to hear this case? Thank you. Moving on to item 3.4, vacation item 2022-00024, located near Woodlawn Boulevard and K96. This item has been withdrawn by the agent. Item 3.5, vacation item 2022-00025, city case located near 119th Street West and 29th Street North. Does anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Any commissioner participating virtually want to hear this case? Anyone in chambers want to hear this case? Anyone from the public participating virtually want to hear this case? We will take item 3.5 on consent. Item 3.6, vacation item 2022-00026, a county item near 231st Street South and west of 47th Street. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Any commissioner virtually want to hear this case? Any member of the public in chambers want to hear this case? Anyone from the public virtually want to hear this case? We'll take that item on consent.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve items 3.2, 3.5, and 3.6.
Mr. Green made a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
From Ms. Foster. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
And I
12-1.
I would like to move that we approve item 3.3.
Motion from Mr. Green for item 3.3. Can I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Hartman seconds. And all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have any opposed and abstention. Mr. Johnson,
Abstain.
motion passes 11-0-1. Moving on to the conditional use items. Item 4.1 on Douglas and Meridian has been withdrawn by the agent. Item 4.
I do have a question on that one,
You want
though.
to have a question?
Yeah, I know that it's been withdrawn. The concern I have is, I'm assuming we'll probably have this back at a future date. While I'm thinking about it, my concern with this is that structures are already built at that location. There's a duplex and a garage with an apartment above. The question I have is, how were they able to build what they built there without having the proper zoning and details that needed to be taken care of, since it's a undersized lot to begin with, and then they built 3 dwelling units? Would think that MAPCD plan exams should not have approved this to begin with.
Philip Ziebenbergen with planning staff. It depends on how they finished out that space above the garage, on if it's currently finished out as another dwelling unit or if it was going to be finished out at a future date. If it was originally constructed with the 2 dwelling units and the garage, which is space above the garage, they could have gotten the building permit for that. Whether they then finished it differently or plan to finish it as an apartment later is unknown.
Okay.
Yeah, just from personal experience, what I've seen is people who finish out a space above a garage for, say, a child or something, so that they've got an extra room, even within a single-family house, it doesn't constitute a separate dwelling unit. It's only when they finish it out with both the restroom, the kitchen, sleeping facilities, quarters, that they would have the dwelling unit meet the standard for a dwelling unit. So they can have the space above, and they can finish it out to a certain degree, but they can't have it as a separate dwelling unit.
So that qualifies to have a building permit issued for it, right?
It does, depending on what they pulled a permit for in that space. So that could create an issue for them if they came in to say, we finish it out completely with all of those amenities and facilities. They would run into an issue. But for right now, it is zone TF3, so it does allow for 2 units. So that would allow for the first main structure that you've seen in the photos.
Do we have any idea if that dwelling unit above the garage, if that was built for habitation as a separate living unit with the things that are required to have a separate living unit?
It's indicated in the site plans that they wanted to have it initially as an accessory apartment to a duplex. However, we were looking at the code further, and accessory apartments are only for single-family dwelling units. So then they changed it to be a conditional use for multifamily. But when they submitted the site plan, it was for an accessory apartment.
But Christina, I think along the lines of that question, I think the question is, do we know to the state to what degree that space is finished above the garage?
Oh, we don't know. We don't have any.
I would imagine that the building plan would indicate that, and
Yeah, we can circle up with MAPCD if you'd like afterwards, follow up with you.
I would, simply because this is coming in and they're trying to make it work, and they may have gone beyond what they could do without the proper documentation and authority to be able to do that. Thank you. I'm sure we'll discuss it when it comes back.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Takes us to item 4.2, CUP 2022-00035, located near Greenwich and 13th Street. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Any commissioner virtually want to hear this case? Anyone in chambers want to hear this case? Anyone virtually from the public want to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll take that item on consent. Item 4.3, denials being recommended, so we will hear that case. It's the case near Douglas Avenue and Hillside. Item 4.4, we will hear this case, zoning item 2022-00039, because there's an updated staff report. Item 4.5, zoning case 2022-00041, zone change near 53rd Street North and east of Ridge Road. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Does any commissioner virtually want to hear this case? Oh, you do? Yeah. Oh, you were nodding yes. I gotcha. We will hear this case. That takes us back to our first case to be heard today, which is?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move to approve 4.2.
Oh, we have a motion to approve item 4.2, a second by Mr. Johnson, second by Commissioner Miles. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I have a
Motion,
question on 4.2.
Question?
Scott, on the second page at the bottom, it says that the applicant is requesting a waiver of the prohibition against raised display platforms, and waivers require city council approval with recommendation from the MAPC. Do we have to recommend that?
We talked about that in agenda review this morning and determined that, knowing that that was written in the staff report, that if the commissioners did not want to hear it vis-a-vis, it's understood that's part of your recommendation.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out.
And Madam Chair, I need to apologize. Item 4.5, I don't need to hear that.
Okay.
And I think I was the only one that wanted to hear
You're
it
the only one.
on the
Well,
commission.
we stopped at you, so I
Yeah,
need
yeah,
to call
yeah.
further.
Yeah, so if you
So
would.
let's go further on item 4.5, the zoning case at 53rd North, east of Ridge Road. Is there any commissioner virtually who wants to hear that case? Is there anyone in chambers who wants to hear that case? And is there anyone participating virtually from the public who would like to hear that case? 53rd North and North Ridge Road. Okay, hearing none, we can also take that item on consent.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move to approve item 4.5.
I have a motion from
Second.
Bill Johnson, a second from Mr. Green. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Hearing none. 4.5 passes. And now, Philip, we're going to hear our first case of the day, 4.3.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Philip Zevenbergen with Planning Staff. Before I get into the meat of this staff report, at your desk you have a paperclip packet. It contains an updated first page. Mr. Green caught a typo on the first page. The staff recommendation for this is denial. The front page of your original staff report inadvertently still said approval from a previous staff report we used. So I apologize for the typo on that. Just to be clear, we are not changing a recommendation. The recommendation in the back of your staff report of denial is the recommendation at your desk is just an corrected first page to reflect that. Also at your desk is public comment that we have received via email after the mailing of the staff report. You received some of that prior to today's meeting. Some of it is also new based on the timing of when we received that. There is initially comments opposing it, and then the very last page of that paperclip packet is information we received from the agent, from folks in the surrounding area who have indicated support for it as well. With those behind us, I'll get into the meat of this rezoning application. The property, as you see on the screen, is located on the south side of Douglas, 1 block west of South Hillside. It encompasses 3015 East Douglas, which is where M&J Liquors is located, as well as the property located at 3016 East Oakland, which is south of that. They abut each other and share a property line along a vacated alleyway. The commercial property is zoned general commercial right now. The property on Oakland is zoned two-family residential and is currently constructed with a single-family residential structure. The applicant is requesting a planned unit development to provide some flexibility specifically for how to use the property along East Oakland. They don't necessarily intend to change the current use along with the liquor store. They just want to have the opportunity to use the residential structure more for a commercial use, and the PUD is designed to marry the two properties together to ensure that if this is approved in the commercial type use in the residential structure on Oakland is approved, that it's tied to the use on 3015 East Douglas, the liquor store or any other future use that might go in there. What they're requesting specifically is to be allowed to use a residential structure for warehousing and storage of product for the use on parcel 1, which is the liquor store. So in layman's terms, they want to store additional product of the liquor store in the residential structure. Ty Ben, if you want to go to the aerial, please. You can see here that there's a paved private drive kind of in the absence of what was the vacated alley, and they've paved the rear portion of the Oakland property, and there's no obstruction between the two, and so the whole idea would be to allow delivery trucks to, as they do right now, drive along that private drive and either unload into the liquor store and then unload additional excess product into the rear portion of the residential structure along Oakland. The PUD language would reduce the amount of uses on parcel 1, which is the liquor store property. Currently, it's zoned general commercial. They're having a base zoning of limited commercial instead. So they're actually, in a sense, down zoning the opportunities for uses in that and technically making it a little bit more appropriate for the area. The parcel 2, which is the property on Oakland, They're having a base zoning of two-family residential, which is what it's currently zoned now, in addition to the warehouse and storage use, limited to the north side of the building and associated with uses on parcel 1. So again, not that you can just store things and distribute it to somewhere else, store things and for another property. Storage in that structure would have to be for the use on parcel 1, right now being the liquor store. There's additional language in the PUD that would only require the one parking space for the residential structure on the Oakland versus parking spaces related to warehouse uses, which would be additional parking spaces than what really the site can accommodate, or really what they would want to have to put on there knowing it's a residential street on Oakland. Setbacks are identified. They're typical for what's in limited commercial for parcel 1. Parcel 2, the setbacks would be similar to that of the limited commercial, which is less than what TF3 allows, but considering the age of the neighborhood surrounding it and the date at which most of those houses were built, you're looking at the early 19-teens, 1920s. A lot of those were built closer to property lines than what current zoning actually would allow them to do right now. And so it's not necessarily out of character to allow a structure to be built closer to the property lines like this PUD would be allowed. Screening and landscaping. There's a screening fence along the south property line of parcel 1, along its boundary. It's open here, and then there's fencing there as well. That will have to remain. There's language in there that says if parcel 1 is ever redeveloped, to be interpreted like totally raised and new structure being built, they would have to maintain the screening requirement as well as come into compliance with the landscape ordinance of the city of Wichita, which would require landscaping along Douglas and Chautauqua, as well as a landscape buffer along the rear where touching residential zoning. Signs and architectural controls. Signage on parcel 1 may be limited to the limited commercial district, which aligns with its proposed base zoning, and signage on parcel 2 would be limited to the TF3 district, which is in line with its proposed base zoning. Architectural controls would require that any structure on parcel 2 be residential in character with a sloped roof and residential siding materials, again as an attempt to permit the structure, or to continue a lot of the structure to remain in character with the other residential structures along Oakland, and not let a commercial type structure ever be rebuilt in the future if this structure were to ever be torn down. If you want to go back to the zoning map, as you can see, properties surrounding it are generally zoned commercial along Douglas with a number of uses such as retail, offices, restaurants, things of that nature. Properties surrounding the south side, you have a preponderance of TF3. Most of those are built with single-family homes. You do have a bit of general office zoning farther down Oakland. Those are built with parking lots that do have access to Oakland. And I believe they're accessory parking lots to two restaurants that are on Douglas. I believe it's Harry's as well as Margarita's. They have additional parking in the back, but those parking lots do have driveways onto Oakland. Overall, staff is recommending denial on the basis of introducing a commercial use onto a residential street. Though there are things in the PUD regarding the architectural controls and things like that, it generally goes against our policies and plans to allow. At this location along Oakland, you have a very residential character, you have a very residential structure along the street, and you're using it as a commercial use. When we look at the places for people plan, well, number one, the community investments plan identifies the portion of the property on Oakland as appropriate for residential uses. When you go down to the places for people plan, you look at strategies like strategy number 5, provide a diversity of housing options to attract new residents and allowing existing residents to remain in the ECA. This structure was built in 2018 and since then likely has not been used as a residence. So you're actually taking an opportunity for housing to be taken out of the ECA when you're on a residential block where it really should be the most appropriate use for it. Locational guidelines discourage higher intensity development from being located in areas near existing lower intensity development, especially low density residential areas like single family or two family residential, which the surrounding zoning would permit. The Central Northeast Plan update was adopted in 2005. One of the top issues was related to housing, businesses, and quality of life. There's 11 priorities identified in the plan. Priority number 5 would be promoting new home construction. On the face value, a new home was constructed in 2018, which actually which conforms to this plan, but the structure is not currently being used as a home. And so because of that, we feel that it is not in conformance to that plan. And nor would this PUD really be setting up to be used as a home. Its primary purpose, as long as M&J Liquors is in control of it, would be for storage of product and not residential uses. So again, staff is recommending denial. However, as always, at the back of your staff report, we do provide you conditions of approval should this board feel it is appropriate use to recommend approval of it. We do have recommended text, PUD text, in your staff report for you to consider. Given the text that was submitted, we don't have any changes to it per se. So that recommended text would be a condition of approval that it adhere to those. And then the standard ones of providing staff with all of our required documentation that we would need should a PUD move forward with approval. As I mentioned before, I have heard public comments both over the phone and the emails that you received, general concerns of having a commercial use on the residential street, how that might continue to erode the character of the street when you already have a parking lot to the north, and now you're introducing a commercial use right in the middle, how that could encourage possible future degradation of the residential character of Oakland, at least the western portion of Oakland, and other concerns that you could read about. And I know there are likely some folks here who would like to provide their comment that I'll let them state it better than I am. We can go through the rest of the slides here if you want to move forward. Type in, there's the aerial as we mentioned. This is the, go back, comprehensive plan identifying for new residential. Next picture. This is the PUD plan, as you can see, parcel 1 with the liquor store and then parcel 2 with the residence. Next picture. This is looking south at the liquor store from Douglas. And you can see, as I kind of mentioned right when I was taking pictures, they're having a delivery using that drive in between the liquor store and the residential structure. Next picture. This is looking to the southeast. This parking lot is the parking lot that serves the liquor store. This is a residential house on Chautauqua Street. These are converted houses along Douglas with office uses, and they're zoned commercially. Next picture. This is looking to the southeast. This is Harry's Restaurant, and that's Margarita's. Those are restaurants that have the extra parking behind them in the geo zoning. Next picture. This is looking north at Dillon's across the street. Next picture. Now we've moved to Oakland. As you can see, Oakland is a original brick street. This is the structure in question. It does have a residential character, as you can see. But as you can see, there are original houses built in the 1910s or 1920s on either side. Next picture. This is the property to the west of it. Next picture. It's the property looking in between the properties, you can see the delivery truck in between the properties. Next picture. This is properties across the street to the south. Next picture. Again, more properties to the south. Next picture. This is farther east on Oakland. This is one of the driveways from the parking lot. So you're looking, this is the subject residential structure right here. But this is one of the access points to the parking lot further east on Oakland. Next picture. And then looking due north through those parking lots to the backside of the restaurants on Douglas. I think that might be it, yes. And with that, I can stand for any questions you have for staff.
Any questions for staff from the commission at this point? Yes, Mr. Green.
The structure that was built on parcel 2, I know it's zoned TF3. Was it built as a single family or was it built as a duplex?
My understanding it was built as a single family home.
Okay, so that means that everything that you would need to have for residents would be in there. You made a comment that the north half of this structure is being used for storage currently?
I believe they have been using it for storage and were officially cited for using the property illegally.
Mr. McKay, you have a question?
I do. Were you talking to me?
Okay, Mr.
Or-
McKay, Mr. McKay has a question right now.
No, there is no alleyway there. It's vacated. You can see on the picture here, the property lines go all the way to the middle. It is paved all the way there, but it is not a public right-of-way. They effectively is an alley, but it's not public right-of-way. All the different property owners do own their portion of it. It just happens to be paved the entire way.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Yeah, was this house ever rented and used as residential?
I do not know, but I can defer to the applicant or their agent to answer that question.
Okay. Any other questions
Okay.
from the commission at this point? If not, we'll ask the applicant or agent to come forward. State your name and address, and you'll have 10 minutes. And I won't time you till you hit the podium. That doesn't mean you can't walk fast.
I'll try. I'll try to get there as fast as I can.
All right.
Afternoon, Phil Meyer with Boffman Company, agent for the applicant. Also with me here today is Jeff Bro, who is the applicant on this application. Very simple PUD in my opinion. So the property's zoned general commercial today. This PUD allows parcel 1 to continue to operate. It says LC in the PUD. Which is the retail use we're using there today. And parcel 2 can be used for storage as long as you go out the north side of that building, and out the south side it stays residential. So this is a structure that was started in 2018. The residents built a single family at the moment, not that it couldn't be remodeled into a duplex, built for single family. It was never finished when COVID hit in 22. They were still working on the kitchen and trying to get it finished inside. COVID hit and the retail business went up and he needed a place to store some of this stuff. So for the last 2 years, and what I'm admitting today that I may regret, for the last 2 years, this facility's been used this way, warehousing material for the retail business on parcel 1. On the backside. So there wasn't really good photos of it, but if you looked at it, there's 2 garage doors back there and a fence, and it's gated, and there's security cameras keeping an eye on what's going back there. But if you were on the north side of that building on parcel 2, you cannot walk to the front side of it without having the key to get through the gate, so it's locked up. They presently do not load material directly into that. Everything goes into the retail store, then they're dollying it across the vacated alley and storing it in that building and going back and forth that way. So from a noise standpoint, no additional impact to the neighborhood. We still want to be able to rent that out and use it as a residence. So we would tell you about 1/3 or the north third of that facility is stored material today. 2/3 of it's open and could be used for residential rental. He got cited for using that, which he can't do. I don't think he realized that at the time, but he has been cited. So that's why we put this PUD together. Very simple PUD. We can look at additional language if you think we missed something, but it's pretty simple in that parcel 1 gets to keep the commercial uses it's doing and complies with commercial. Parcel 2 gets to keep its TF3 zoning that it had before. And the only way we can use this for storage of material warehousing is it has to be associated with parcel 1, and it can only come in through the north. So if I want to rent that space and put something in it, I can't with my material. If I'm not operating in the building on parcel 1, then we can't store in this facility. So is pretty protective to make sure that this doesn't grow into something else. In our opinion, doesn't have a negative impact on the neighborhood to the south because we're not accessing to the south. We're not parking employees on the south. There's no correlation between what's happening on Oakland Street and what we're doing storage-wise in the back of this building. I do have one more. So I sent several letters that he got this morning to Philip to put in your packet. We got one more letter that I got about 12:30 today that I have emailed to Philip so he can put it in the file. I'm going to read it to you. It's from Joseph Davis, who lives at 3010 East Oakland. That would be the property immediately to the west of the subject property. On parcel 2, I support rezoning because property is well taken care of and quiet. I live next door to this building, Joseph Davis. So I'll put that on file, and with that, it's probably best if I stop for a little bit and answer any questions that planning commissioners may have.
Any questions for the agent from our commission? Commissioner Foster?
Is the residential portion of this building actually built out into a livable?
It is now. When he started using this for warehousing, it was not ready yet. The kitchen was not done, and he was trying to finish it up. And
Okay, so it's a livable space, but there's nobody living in it? Is
correct.
that? Okay.
Correct.
That, I just wanted that clarified.
Other
And
questions?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Commissioner Cunningham.
It's a little over 2,300 square feet, and the plan says it was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. So was it always the intention to have half of it be warehouse?
I don't know that I can answer that for you, Ms. Cunningham. I was told that happened during the COVID time, that it became obvious that he needed to do that. So I don't have an answer for that question.
I just read that on their application from 2018, that it was a really big house with only 1 bedroom and 1 bath. I was just curious.
Open floor plan.
I have a question.
Commissioner Miles, then Commissioner Hartman.
So I'm assuming that liquor is what's stored in this property.
Yes, ma'am. Not
Right?
Yes, that's the majority of it. Anything sold in the liquor store can be sold there, but that's the majority of the merchandise.
So because of the vicinity that this is to the other houses and the fact that liquor is highly flammable, I'm somewhat concerned about the fact that this is being stored this close to other properties in case of a fire, and wonder whether or not there's some approval that's taken place from the fire marshal, I guess, to store a large quantity of liquor in a residential facility that's that close to other houses.
If we, I guess my response to that is if we have zoning approved with this PUD to allow this, then we'll take the next step with the fire department on what would be necessary to continue that operation.
And are there steps that you can take to protect the houses that are in such close vicinity in case a fire should break out?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, from a construction standpoint, yes, there are firewalls or fire retarding devices or things that could be used if the fire department felt that was necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hartman.
Yes, I'm curious, Phil, you said the north side of this structure has 2 overhead doors?
Yes, sir.
So were they constructed originally with that structure, or did they come later?
No, I think they were constructed originally with that structure.
With the idea that that would be a garage back there?
Yes.
Commissioner Green.
With a PUD, if this property were to sell, would the conditions that we approve stay with that property? Okay.
The answer is yes.
Or whatever future use is on parcel one.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
If we were to, can we put a condition on this parcel 2 that if this property were to, if parcel 1 were to change hands and it would be an entirely different use, could we require that parcel 2 revert back to TF3 zoning? And can we do that in the PUD? Staff question, sorry.
Yeah. Consulted a little bit about that just now, and more commonly what we see is a time limit set on a certain use, but when it comes to tying whether or not a property was to change hands or use.
So I have a follow-up.
I'm sorry,
Why
I didn't quite catch all of the, you were cutting out a little bit.
I don't believe it's possible the way that you've mentioned it. Like I said, we've seen time that something may operate for a given set amount of time and then come back and be revisited, but
Like a 5-year time period that they could do this?
not with the condition of the use
Ownership
of property.
or usage. So if we were to put like a 5-year time limit on it, then they would have to come back in 5 years and request a continuance, I guess, of an approval to use it for storage?
Time limits have been used in some other locations, yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Cunningham, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wondered if there was another mechanism altogether, a conditional use or a waiver, leave it the way it is, but give them a waiver to use it, half of the building. But to make this permanent change like that, sure opens the door.
The way that parcel 2 is currently zoned, the property on Oakland, there's nothing in the zoning code that would allow this in addition to the TF3 zoning. Like, truly, this is really the more appropriate way to try to handle this. Otherwise, you're looking at a zone change to something for that property in addition to a conditional use or something where really this kind of is the cleanest way to do it, because if you do a straight zone change to another commercial classification, you're adding a protective overlay to remove all these other types of uses. And truly, to zone PUD, it's a permanent thing, but it allows the flexibility to significantly restrict to say it is only for TF3 uses in addition to the one extra. It's just a matter of how can you tailor the PUD, it sounds like, to potentially future protect the area should the situation change and the property ever change hands. I think that's what the commission is trying to figure out.
It's a very protective device, in my opinion, to use in this situation, that we have tied it to whatever activity happens on one. We've tied it that can only happen from one side of the building. We have it fenced today. If you want it clearer that the north line always has to be fenced and gated, you can add that. There's several things we can do to tighten it up if you want. Sorry, Mr. Johnson, you're up.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, did you say a third of this building would be used for storage and the rest is residential?
That's the way it's operating today. That's not the way the PUD is written. I'm not opposed to that.
How is a PUD wrote in?
That it can be storage as long as the entrance is in and out of the north end, and it can be residential as long as the entrance is out of the south end. And we have to maintain residential character on east, south, west, and that could be flexible. So half of it could be storage, half could be residential, 20% could be storage, 80% could be residential. I mean, it's more of protecting the exterior, and the protection to Oakland Street was what we tried to do with the PUD. We're open if you want to tie that down tighter, we can certainly discuss that.
And I basically just needed to know if that was what you'd said or not.
Yeah, I was just trying to tell you how it's operating today.
One more question. If you do rent out the front half of it, will they have access to the garage and be coming and going through the back? The tenant?
I think as long as there is warehousing going on the north side, the answer to that is no. They have a parking up front they can use, and if we use the whole thing as residential, which is allowed, then they could use the garages.
Except the garages have no access to public right-of-way. I mean, from a practical perspective, they could probably use the paved alley, but I don't think they're officially garages if they don't have access to public right-of-way.
That could be handled with an access easement, but I don't disagree with you. We don't intend to use the garages for residential access at this point in this PUD.
I find it very unlikely that this building will ever be lived in. I don't know if I'd want to live next to a highly flammable warehouse full of liquor. But given that, I think the building's there. I don't think it's going away. The attempts to make the south facade look sort of residential are what they are. I suspect they won't get any better. I'm torn on this one.
We haven't yet called for public comment, so let's move on to public comment. Is there anyone in chambers who would like to speak on this item? If so, please come forward. Give us your name and address, please, and you'll have 3 minutes.
I certainly will. My name is Barry Roush. I live at 3013 Oakland, directly across the street from this property. I have already emailed comments, and I didn't intend to be here today, but I was contacted yesterday and requested to be here. First, I'd like to give a little history and a note that this isn't the first time that this lot has been an issue in a rezoning case. When I bought our house in 1985, I was told the lot belonged to Security Oil that owned the gas station on the corner of Douglas and Chautauqua. They tried to rezone it at that time so they could use the house as offices, and they were denied that request, and in spite, they came in and tore the house down. That's why that lot's been sitting empty until 2018. In 2018, they began the construction, and I called the zoning, sorry, I'm getting confused with my other letter. Let me start again. Second, I would like to ask the zoning board, do they think that the zoning request had been made in 2018 before the construction if they would have approved a liquor store warehouse being built in a neighborhood with literally feet to a house on each side of a street that is so narrow it is restricted to parking only on one side? Could this be why the request wasn't made at that time? It was less likely to succeed without an existing structure. How many of you would choose to live next to a liquor store? Third, as I presented in my email comments, I spoke with several people in the zoning, building, and construction offices during the build process and told them of the owner's intent to build a warehouse for his liquor store, and he was still allowed to build it. Fourth, I feel regardless of the decision of this board, as a result of the warehouse already being built, we as a neighborhood have already lost. If the decision for Mr. Bro, we have a liquor store warehouse embedded in our neighborhood, and if the decision is against, we now have a pretend house that the owner can't use for his intended purpose and probably won't care much about it. Finally, I have nothing personal against Mr. Bro. I know that he's trying to run a business. I was even approached by a family member of mine that is a friend of Mr. Bro about my stance on this matter. I'm disappointed in the city for allowing this to happen, but this is personal to me. It is my house. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in chambers who would like to speak on this case, or any questions for the speaker? Anyone else in chambers who'd like to speak, come forward, please.
Hi, my name is Monica Marks, and my
Can we get your address too, please?
My address is 244 South Erie. So I am directly 1 block west and 1 block south from the liquor store. I bought my house in 2019, and for the first 2 years I lived there, I was on the board of the East Front Neighborhood Association. I did not run for that again just this past year. I have also been the Democratic PCP person for the neighborhood as long as I've lived there. And what that means is I canvass the neighborhood 3 times a year, and I work on neighborhood engagement to get people involved and to know the neighbors and to help them find their voting locations, et cetera, so on and so forth. So what I want to tell you, the reason I bought my house in East Front is so my children could go to East High. And now that I've lived there for 3 years and have existed on this intersection of Douglas and Hillside for 3 years, having kids walking from the school every day, shopping at the Dillons, shopping at the Quick Shop, what I can tell you is that one of our best neighborhood assets in East Front is the liquor store. There's no cleaner business. If you look at the businesses around us, take the Quick Shop, for example, the touchpads on the gas station pumps haven't worked in over a year. There's trash. The neighborhood actually, and again, I knock doors on the constant, having just recently knocked 300 doors for the primary in this town. What I can tell you is the neighborhood as a whole appreciates the liquor store. It's one of our best neighbors. It's one of the cleanest. There have been times in the past I've told my children if they have any problems in the neighborhood, they should run to the liquor store. I've seen the employees help people push their cars out of the street on Douglas when they break down. So, again, I would like to say that even though I don't live on Oakland, I'm very familiar with this property. It is very well kept. If you look at the picture, that van parked in front of it is actually belonged to one of the other neighbors. It's absolutely quiet, clean all the time, and I would like to mention that I have 2 other neighbors on Zoom that also have a long history in the neighborhood, and we would like to see the liquor store continue to thrive in our neighborhood as it's one of the most well-kept businesses on the intersection.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any other persons in chambers who would like to speak on this item? Is there anyone participating virtually who would like to speak on this item?
I would like to.
Go ahead, Ms. Hammock, is that correct?
That is someone else, but I'd also like to provide comment afterward. Thank you.
Would you give us your name and address, please, for the record? Ms. Hammock?
Oh, sure. I think someone else had tried to speak up, but I will go first. I'm Abigail Hammock. I live at 2715 East Waterman, and I have not submitted any previous comments. I would like to start to say I'm very supportive of the liquor store. They have been a great neighbor. However, I think that this zone change does not support the main goal of adding housing to this area. I don't think this change incentivizes filling that space with with someone to live there. I think someone had mentioned previously who would want to choose to live there, and I think this potentially presents an equity issue if there is a large amount of flammable material. Most people may not want to choose to live there, but potentially have no other choice and would have to choose this option because there's little housing in this area, especially with access to East High and the other great amenities in the area. It's awesome place. The liquor store is a huge asset to the community, but I don't think that this supports the main goal for the city's plan to increase housing in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else virtual who would like to speak on this item?
Yes, I would like to go.
Your
My
name and
name is
address,
Ashlyn
please.
Riley. My address is 344 South Volusia, and I live in the neighborhood. I've literally lived there, not necessarily in that house, in the house next door, 342, my entire life. I absolutely love the liquor store. It has wonderful people. It's a place that I go to and people recognize me. They know my dog. They know my family. I've always felt supported and safe there. It's a very clean environment. And the house or the current area that they are using as kind of that storage facility has always been so well kept. It's been well kept. It's quiet. And I understand that may be what some people think of as taking away some housing. But our neighborhood is so rich with so many just various options, different people who live here. And as far as I know, if this were to be, rezoned or not used necessarily as housing, there's only one other house in the neighborhood that I know is like that out of however many houses there are in my area. I've also seen houses come and go for sale and for rent. And, I can say that just because a property is there and available for people to move into doesn't always mean that it's going to be taken care of or, ensured that you're going to get neighbors who value that area. And so I support the liquor store. I want to see them continue to be a huge asset to our neighborhood, to the Douglas area. And I think that the fact that they're able to take so many precautions and, mentioning that there is going to be flammable materials in there, but assuring that they're going to take precautions for those steps to make sure that it is as safe as it can be, as it still is and continues to be now. So I definitely support it.
Thank you. Any other persons virtually who would like to speak on this item?
I had a,
Go
ahead.
Ms. Riley?
Hi, this is Lisa Riley. I live at 342 South Volusia. I've lived here in this house since 1989. I've seen the neighborhood, kind of go down. I'm pleased to say since like Douglas Design District, which I was on their board, has thrived. And I think that the liquor store is part of that. I've also supported I've been on the East Front East Front Council for 20 plus years, newsletter editor for 10. And I appreciate the liquor store because it's a small, locally owned business. They employ people in the area. Their property is well maintained, it's safe. I was thrilled to see that there was a building going up on Oakland, as I am always happy to see some new construction. I live across the street from a building that has been vacant, and raccoons live in the basement. And so, I understand people thinking that maybe it's not residential enough. But honestly, in an old neighborhood like we have, I appreciate the investment. And I also appreciate their wanting to help raise the neighborhood up by maintaining, by keeping things neat, safe, clean. I think as a neighborhood, East Front, we need to be encouraging businesses to move in and appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? If not, next speaker, please.
Hi. I've tried to jump in a couple times here, so I think I'm going to
your
go.
name and address, please.
My name, sorry. My name is Samantha Wyke. I live at 307 South Erie Street in Wichita, right there in East Front. I've been a homeowner for 4 years now. I'm familiar with the property. I've driven by, I've walked around, I've taken a look, and you can definitely tell, the structure wasn't really built in the character of the neighborhood. There are new builds of homes in our neighborhood that fit the 1910s, 1920s bungalow style. You can't even really tell that they're new unless you're really up close. That particular building, however, doesn't really fit the character of the neighborhood. I did want to echo the comments prior that the liquor store is an excellent business that is frequented by many people that I know, including myself in the neighborhood. We love the liquor store. Literally, it's clean, it's beautiful. It's a wonderful addition and improvement. I remember before it remodeled, and I know that it's a wonderful business there. My real main concern is that this kind of seems like a situation where we're asking for forgiveness rather than permission, as we've seen in our neighborhood, our neighboring neighborhood, College Hill, where 2 houses were torn down and a parking lot, which is now just a pit, currently exists. I am concerned about that being something to be concerned about. I try to put myself in the position of somebody who lives right next to that structure, and as the individual that said they live across the street from the house said, he's not pleased about it, and that's kind of where I put my opinion on it. I try to consider everybody else's opinions and feelings on it, but I don't feel like this was really done with a lot of integrity, which I'm pretty sad about. But I don't think the structure fits the character of the neighborhood, like I said, and I'm trying to put myself in a position of somebody that lives right up there next to it, and I don't think I would be pleased with the rezoning.
Thank you, Ms. White, for your testimony. Any questions for the speaker? Any other persons participating virtually who'd like to speak on this item?
I would like to.
Okay, go ahead. Your name and address, please.
Matt Pearson, 3010 East Oakland. I have the property that is directly to the west side of this lot, and I've owned it since 2015. And even at that time, I reached out and tried to purchase that lot, because for us it was like a side yard, and we had 4 kids at the time. And so I mowed and took care of the vacant lot at the time. And from the beginning, when this property, when this new building started to come about, the owner had reached out to me, wanted to go halves on replacing a fence, taking out a tree, that kind of thing, which was fine. I decided not to do, because at that point I had moved out and it was a rental property for me. But it was evident from my conversation with him in the beginning that this was never intended to be a residential property for somebody to live in. I mean, it looks like a warehouse. It's always acted as a warehouse. It has warehouse doors in the back, which my tenant, who's been there for quite a while now, has complained about. So I'm not sure what the letter is regarding that he referred to in his initial statement from somebody he said someone at 3010 East Oakland, named Joseph, wrote. So I'm not sure who that would be, but and he could speak to that if you'd like. But so I guess that would be my statement. I mean, like I said, I own the property next door. To me, it's sure, maybe it's clean because it's brand new, but it's going to be a vacant property used as a warehouse. And I think it's really disrespectful to the community and to this board. You can look at the building and see it was never intended to be residential. I think it's really disrespectful that they even built it that way in the first place, and then come back and say, oh, well, since you called us, yeah, we want to use this as a storage facility, which it so obviously was the entire time. And I guess that's really all I have to say about it.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any other callers who'd like to speak? Hearing none, we can have the applicant agent come back for a rebuttal. And you have 2 minutes. Once you get up here.
Now it's a minute.
That would be a good idea. in the
Now it's a
future.
minute 45.
I'm back. You know, that, I believe that PUD is the tool necessary if we want to allow this use. That PUD ties this thing down the best way you can from a zoning standpoint. I believe, when I look at that, first time I drove by it, the south, east, and west side of that is very residential in character. So the comment to say that facility is not residential in character, I believe it is. They may not like the era of it, but from a construction standpoint, it looks very residential. Mr. Bro is here. He's told me he'd be glad to come answer questions if you have some for him. I've heard a lot about the concern about fire and flammability of the material in there. To me, I'm watching planning commissioners going, that's the item they're going to struggle with. So we're talking land use today and how we do land use. If you approve this, then we can go down the road of what's necessary with the fire department. So don't struggle with that one too long. We can have the fire department out. We can show them what we're doing. We can meet whatever requirements they want us to do. So it's more of a land use issue today. I'm not worried about the fire department. If they come out and look at it and we can work through that, I know there's things that can be done from a construction standpoint. With that, I'll stop in case you have questions for Mr. Bro that you'd like to ask him.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, you know, staff didn't recommend denial of this, but they also have this case where if we decide to approve it, certain stipulations. Are you guys in agreement with all them stipulations?
Yes, we are. There's no issue with those.
Thank you.
Other questions for the agent? Mr. Green? Commissioner Green?
I was going to, in a motion, I was going to include some items that would need to meet in order for it to be approved. One of those would be, and I don't think they were listed in the agenda report. One of them was have it fenced and gated on the backside.
Which it is today, and we're good with that.
Another one would be 1/3 or the existing garage space is what would be, whichever is greater, would be what would be approved or allowed for storage.
Okay.
Fire department approval, which you've already stated that you would do that. A certificate of occupancy. I don't know if this even has a certificate of occupancy right now to even allow what's going on in there.
I can't answer.
Yeah.
Well, to allow what's going on, no. Certificate of occupancy for residents, I can't answer.
Okay, but that would be, that would need to be taken care of.
Okay.
And to limit this approval for 10 years for parcel 2.
In that one, I'm going to throw out a couple ideas, and staff may help me, may just go, no, we're recommending denial, period. So I'm fine with that. But I think we've done some before, more on sand pits and operations where they run for X length of time, then they automatically renew. And then if the planning director finds that they're out of compliance, he can bring it back to planning commission. So it doesn't show up at planning every time. It shows up on the director's desk, and if he doesn't like it, it gets kicked to planning.
Yeah.
And if you want to do a 5-year time frame or 10-year and then a 1-year auto renewal with the director having the right to kick it back, I think something like that would work fine.
Those were some of the thoughts that I had with the approval.
We have a staff comment. Philip?
I think what Mr. Myers is referencing in terms of auto renewal is renewal by administrative adjustment,
Right.
which is still an application to the planning department for administrative consideration. It just is not coming before the planning commission unless, so with administrative adjustment, there are signs that are put out. It does provide an opportunity for public to provide comment. If it's deemed necessary, it can be kicked up to become a public hearing item. It just isn't automatically, number one, it's not an automatic renewal, and number two, it's not automatically a public hearing. So, but that's what we've done in the past is, in terms of conditions, requiring an administrative adjustment in order for them to be extended.
That's good, that's
And-
correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Johnson?
Those are my thoughts, and when it's time to make a motion, I'll.
I have a question for staff. If this building goes back to being residential, say it's sold to somebody, how does the person get access for parking? How does a buyer get access to parking?
The response on parking again.
In the front yard.
There is one parking space in the front, which meets the parking requirement.
That wouldn't be a multifamily and just be a single family only?
Yes, and that would be for a single family only. If it became a duplex, there'd have to be other parking provided or some sort of access easement granted along the rear to make use of the garages in the back.
Yeah. Right now, there's no access to the rear, right? If you don't own the business.
That is correct.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, I just want to say that we got a situation here where there's not a perfect answer. We do have a business that's been successful, and I'd like to see business succeed. And where you're going to use maybe half of this, which may be 1,000 square feet, 1,200 square feet. If it was all residential, I don't know how many of us that would be living next to it that even know what they had in the garage. They could easily have some vehicles and fuel and all kinds of stuff, and nobody's protecting it. I feel this, with what they're putting in this, the value it is, I'm sure the security's high on it, which will more than protect what's going on in the facility. And I know the other thing is, if there's any issues, I'm sure the neighbors will report it and it'll be looked at.
I have a question. How long would it take to build adequate storage on parcel 1, seeing that you have this lovely property that can be used as residential? Has that been considered as an option, recognizing?
I don't know, no, that's not been considered as an option today. Could it be? Absolutely. How long would it take to construct something like that? 9 to 18 months. That's hard to say in today's world.
And if we would add, I agree that the residential character of the neighborhood is so lovely and that this really doesn't fit, but a full-length porch, a little bit of brick on the pillars, there could be some improvements in that regard too that would help you attract that tenant, perhaps, if we wanted to consider some additional adjustments to the facade. Just my thoughts.
And
this point of other
those
comments?
I have one more comment. When we're talking about its use, a third, that's roughly 750 square feet, but we've already heard, well, if you might go 1,000, you might go 1,200. That's my concern too, is that there is plenty of room on the parking lot and around the liquor store if they only needed 750 square feet. If their intention was to only use a third of that building, then there is plenty of room on that original lot 1. So, and just the fact that it doesn't match, the master plan or places or people plan, the walkability, it doesn't add any diversity or any residential to the neighborhood. I'm leaning towards supporting staff on this one. So that's all.
Okay.
Susan, Ann, can I?
Yes, Mr. Dill.
If we decline this application with regard to parcel 2, it's still zoned residential, and there's no indication at all that anything is going to be changed about the appearance of that structure. Just a comment.
Commissioner Foster?
I agree with Commissioner Cunningham's comments, but looking at this building, I don't think it was ever intended personally to be anything but a warehouse. It looks like a warehouse to me with a little front porch tacked on the front to give it a little residential smear. I think it's going to be used as a warehouse. I wish this situation had been dealt with earlier in the process, but we're stuck now with what we're stuck with. What I worry about is what happens if we deny it. Is the owner then going to sell this warehouse and hope somebody will renovate it into housing? Is the owner going to renovate it into housing? I personally can't see that happening very successfully. I don't think the character of the neighborhood is going to end up improved whether we deny or accept or approve. Given that, I say this with great reluctance, but I'm inclined to approve simply because I think we have to deal with what is instead of what we wish had happened.
Why don't we take a stab at a motion? I think Commissioner Green's prepared to take a stab.
I would move that we approve the request with the recommended conditions of approval that are noted in the staff report, and add the following conditions. One of them would be fenced and gated on the north side of the property, of parcel 2, excuse me. 1/3 or the existing garage space, whichever is greater, be allowed for storage. Fire department approval of the storage area. A certificate of occupancy for the residential piece of this, which would be the south 2/3, whatever that comes up to. And the 10-year renewal, as Philip so eloquently stated, with coming to the Director of Planning for approval without it having to become a public hearing every single time.
So having the option for extension by administrative adjustment?
Yes, thank you. That's what I said. And that's my motion. Second.
How do we make sure that only 1/3 of that building is used? Who does the follow-up inspections? How will we ever be able to enforce that?
The motion, the 1/3 is the complicated piece of that. That's why I specified, or the garage space that was built into the structure would be what would be used for storage. So that, that's probably going to wind up being anywhere from 400 to 500 square feet. If they said there was a 2-car garage on the back, 25 foot deep, that's 20 by 25, so that'd be 500 square feet. It would be somewhere between 400 and 500 square feet.
Mr. Green?
Would be for the storage, so that it doesn't go into the residential component of the house.
Commissioner Foster?
I have a couple of issues with the motion as stated. Again, I think Commissioner Cunningham is correct. I don't know whether it's the garage space or 1/3 or 1/2 or whatever proportion we would say. I don't know how it could possibly ever be enforced realistically. And more I think about this, the more I'm disinclined to want residential in this. I know we want residential in residential neighborhoods, but I'm trying to think of what kind of firewall you would need between the residential portion of this building and a liquor storage area, and I'm not sure it's financially feasible, and if it ever will actually happen. Sprinkler system, a firewall, by the time the owner realizes how much he's going to have to spend to put a small rental unit in the front portion of this building, I don't know that he's going to be able to make that happen. I think I would like to see a cleaner motion and simply either approve it for a storage unit or not, and not try and detail the interior design as much as we're
We do have a motion and a second, so we'd have to start again, or we could call the question.
Substitute motion.
Substitute.
Can we get a clarification on who made the second?
I did, Josh.
John McKay seconded.
Okay.
Is there anybody who'd like to make a substitute motion, or should we call the question and see where we're at?
I'd like to make a substitute motion to deny.
I have a substitute motion to decide. Cunningham seconds. Now, what do we do?
Vote on the substitute
We take the substitute motion first.
Substitute motion.
And if that motion fails, then we go to the regular motion and call the question on that.
So we're going to call for a vote on the substitute motion, which is to deny per staff recommendation. And this, Cindy made the motion, Commissioner Cunningham seconded. Let's do a roll call vote.
Yes, ma'am.
I have discussion still.
Oh, discussion. Okay, yes, discussion on the substitute motion. Commissioner Blick.
So I made the second motion on green, and I started to talk and I got cut off. But the discussion that I had was, I believe that the spirit and intent of the neighborhood is a mixed use. I know that we have some mixed opinions right now, but when you see there's the bars and the clubs, and then you also have that's mixed in with the residential neighborhood. I see that this is a possibility. After driving through this, I seen how clean it was versus, some of the other commercial properties on the north side where the Dillons was and stuff. And I know that a business could actually, if they wanted to, they could do storage. They can drop storage containers like most of all the businesses that do warehousing in town. They just drop storage containers everywhere. But I see the spirit is that they at least made this look a little bit more residential. I believe that the fire department could look at this and say, hey, you could put beer in it versus hard alcohol because of the flash point is different versus a 3 to 7%. So it would be safe because of the flash point and not be as flammable versus the alcohol. The hard alcohol has to be stored in parcel 1 and beer could be stored in parcel 2. So that's my discussion. I'm in support of this because I believe that the fire department would have the best interest in this and making sure that if there is a situation that they would have that judgment call to say, no, this wouldn't work or this would work. If it's just going to be storage for just paper goods or whatever else, or could they actually put their beer or alcohol, liquor or whatever. So I am in support of this just because of also the fire department having the say so on Green's motion.
Thank you.
I guess what I struggle with is the fact that this is obviously a business person that didn't bother to find out and put in a warehouse that they operated illegally. And yet the business person apparently had the resources to find out what they were, whether what they were doing was appropriate, but didn't bother to find out. And now they're asking for forgiveness because they invested money in building this place. And it doesn't fit with the character of the neighborhood. And I know, we look at other cases where somebody's built a carport or a garage or something like that. And in some cases, we don't approve that because they come back and ask for forgiveness later. I don't know how we maintain our neighborhoods in the way that they should be maintained if we just randomly allow businesses to put things like warehouses in neighborhoods. You know, I know in my neighborhood, we're particular about, you know, whether somebody's going to open a welding shop next door or something like that. And so for those reasons, I can't support allowing this.
Any other discussion?
Ask staff just an administrative question. Am I correct in understanding that only one substitute motion is permitted? So we're basically, we have to either, we have to vote on the motion to deny the substitute motion. And if that is not approved, then we have to vote on Mr. Green's motion. So those are our two choices, and we can't make any other choices.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we ready to call for a vote on the substitute?
Unless somebody were to withdraw their motion. Is that right, Counselor?
Jeff Van Zant, Assistant City Attorney. Yes, there could be a withdrawal of the substitute motion, or the mover of the substitute could entertain an amendment to that motion, which would have to be reseconded. So you can't have the second substitute motion, but you have an amendment of the substitute motion or the withdrawal.
Does anyone want to offer an amendment, or do you have a question, Commissioner Duell?
I do. Just a point of clarification from staff on this. The construction of this building didn't violate any code. There was a construction permit issued. What we're dealing with is how the building is going to be used, right? And apparently it's been used for some time for a purpose that is not authorized in the current zoning, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
All right, does anyone want to offer a amendment to the substitute motion?
Don't we have to vote on the first one?
I'm just seeing if there is any, then let's call for a vote on the substitute motion.
And as a clarification, if you're voting yay on the substitute, that's yes for denial.
Yes. So, roll call vote, please.
Yes, ma'am. Bill Johnson?
Now, what did you just say, Philip?
So if you vote on the substitute motion, the motion is to deny. So a yes vote is a yes for denial. So if you are in support of the zoning, you'll want to vote no on the substitute.
So if I vote yes, I'm against it.
Yes.
Yes.
Against the substitute motion.
Hold on, let's clarify. If you vote yes on the substitute motion, you're against the zoning.
This item will be denied if you vote yes.
You're voting to deny.
So Bill Johnson voting
Yes to deny.
yes to deny.
Are you voting? No.
No.
What he
One
said.
second.
I'm not in favor of the substitute motion, however I got to vote.
Oh, you're in favor?
Vote no.
Wait, you're not in favor of the substitute motion, so you'll want to vote no. Like, the substitute motion is to deny the zoning. If you would like the zoning to go forward, you need to vote no on the substitute motion. Or vote no right now, like, as your vote on the substitute motion is to vote
If I
no.
vote no, that motion, that will not pass.
You're voting no to deny,
Number of votes.
or yes to deny?
If you vote yes, you're denying the zoning. If you vote no right now, you're in favor of the zoning.
No.
The substitute motion is to deny the zoning.
Yes.
So if you vote yes, you're denying the zoning. If you vote no, you're in support of the zoning.
Is that right? If he votes yes, he's in agreement with Cindy's motion. If he
Yes.
votes no, he's against
Ask
it.
Green to vote first, then we'll know what to have.
Okay, we will come back to you, Mr. Johnson. So,
It would have been
Fox?
simpler to take the first motion.
I am voting yes to deny the
Yes.
zoning.
Okay. McKay? No. No. Green?
No.
Duell?
No.
Blick?
No.
Nix?
No.
Foster?
No.
Warren is absent. Joe Johnson?
No.
Miles?
Yes.
Hartman?
No.
Cunningham?
Yes.
William Spey is absent. I show 3 in favor, 9 opposed. Motion fails.
Now we will vote on the original motion, which was by Commissioner Green
Yeah.
with the additional components.
Correct.
Unless there's an amendment offered for that. And hearing none, let's do a roll call vote.
And
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes?
I would like to make an amendment. Can I make an amendment? Okay.
Okay.
I would like to amend
Make it, or
Ms.
does
Counselor,
make it?
Counselor,
No, Counselor,
No, can we not do that?
can you only amend the,
Only the moving party can amend. You can recommend something, and if the moving party so agrees, that person needs to amend that motion.
I need to
Because an amendment would only occur, we can't do it that way, so.
Okay.
You can
Review
make
my-
suggestions, and if Mr. Green so agrees, and this
Okay.
party's seconding, so.
Mr. Green, may I suggest that you amend your motion to eliminate the part about the proportions of the building used for residential versus warehouse? And simplify the motion a bit. Leave the rest, but just let the proportions be whatever the
They still have to get
owner.
an occupant's permit, so they'll have to have.
well, the garage space is what I'm saying can be storage. There is a distinct garage space, and there is a distinct.
We don't know that. We know there's 2
residential
garage doors.
space.
We don't know if there's a garage in there.
I was thinking that the agent said that there was garage and that there was a residential. And if I could get clarification on that, please.
Bill Meyer offered that the owner, you get questions of him, that's gonna be a question somebody could ask, what proportion of it there is.
I did say that there was garage space and there was non-garage living space. Our preference is her recommended substitute motion, which is the way we wrote the PUD, that we can pick where those spaces happen inside. But I did stand here and tell you there is a garage space and it's about 1/3 of the facility. So that's how you got to where you're at.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm allowed to lobby anymore, but our preference is what she's recommending, but you are making the motion, so you can do whatever you feel is appropriate.
So,
I'd like to hear what the owner has to say, if that's okay.
we're going to let that happen.
Good afternoon. Jeff Bro. My address is 9472 Cross Creek Court. Thank you for your time. The garage is not heated or cooled, so it wouldn't be suitable for that.
The garage isn't heated or cooled so it wouldn't be suitable for what?
For storage.
So are you saying you are using the full facility for storage? and the
No,
garage is
no,
for
we're using
access?
approximately 1/3 of the house for storage.
Oh, you're using 1/3 of the residentials?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yes.
well, okay, that's fine.
That was- I know there was 1/3 going around, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
So would
There
you
we
care
go.
to amend your proposed motion, sir?
If you could please restate that?
Just the same motion you made,
Yes.
only without the part about the proportions of which part is the interior's residential and which part is storage, and just let the owner decide how that works.
Because,
For one thing, we can't enforce it anyway, so.
Well,
And
okay,
just drop that part of your motion.
So right now, there could be no residential allowed, no
Well-
residential at all.
Your motion included requiring a certificate of occupancy, which
yeah,
in my mind would
Yeah, my-
then ensure that it was suitable for housing. and could
My
be used for
motion
that
was,
purpose.
for the north third or the garage space for storage, and the southern part would be for residential. Mr. Johnson?
Well, I agree to her because it's going to get somewhat technical, and all of a sudden, who's going to enforce whether they're using a third or
Quarter,
a quarter or whatever it is, where as long as there's certificate of occupancy on the facility, they can only do what they can do, and we're not judging that.
Our job.
Fair enough. I'll accept that. Now they
Okay.
gotta
So
get-
what he
So,
said, and
who-
now the person who seconded needs to
Yep,
agree to
that's
the.
exactly right.
Okay, we have
Mr. McKay?
an adjustment to the original motion. It's recorded very accurately somewhere, minus the portion of the space allocated to storage, plus the requirement for certificate of occupancy and the 10-year before an administrative adjustment is needed to extend.
And the fire department.
And we have a agreement from the second, John McKay, to accept the changes to the original motion. Let's do a roll call vote, please. This time, your vote would be to approve the change in zoning to the PUD. Ready, set?
Yes, ma'am. Bill Johnson?
Yes.
Fox?
No.
McKay?
Yes.
Green?
Yes.
Jewell?
Yes.
Blick?
Yes.
Nix?
Yes.
Foster?
Aye.
Warren is absent. Joe Johnson?
Yes.
Miles?
No.
Hartman?
Yes.
Cunningham?
No.
Williams Bay is absent. Motion passes 9-3.
Because I have the podium, I just want to say, never have I ever heard someone say they would send their children to the liquor store if they were in trouble. So, congratulations on that. And if this was purposefully done to circumvent the code process, then I'm very sad about that from a well-respected businessman. So there we go. Next item, 4.5. Zoning case 2022-41.
39.
Pardon me?
Zone 2239.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're
It's all right.
one further from the end than I thought. Here we go. 2239, take it away, Christina.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Christina Reith, Associate Planner. The presentation that I'm going to give today is a little bit different than what you see in the report here, and this is a big thanks to Mike Green. We had a phone conversation this morning about the parcel in question. So it is a zone change. It's currently zoned SF5, single-family residential district. They are requesting MF18, multifamily residential district. I just wanted to point out that we made an error in the site size. It says on the report that it's 0.25 acres. And we had to verify this morning that it is actually 0.14 acres. And this makes a difference because of the minimum or the maximum dwelling units allowed on the site. We are still recommending approval, but I just wanted to modify the report as we go along here. So the applicant was initially requesting to construct a duplex with an additional dwelling unit above a garage for a total of 3 dwelling units. But for MF18, there's a maximum of 17.4 dwelling units per acre. So with 0.25 acres, it would allow up to 4 dwelling units, which is, less than the maximum density permitted. However, this is 0.14 acres, so we figured out that that would actually require a maximum of 2.4 dwelling units on this subject site. So that being said, Planning Commission has the option to approve the MF18, and they would only approve up to 2.4 dwelling units per acre, so this would essentially allow a duplex. They can also recommend just putting a TF3 on there as well. The applicant proposes to construct a 2-car garage and a 15-foot driveway off of Mentor Avenue. However, this doesn't satisfy the minimum parking requirement for MF18. The parking ratio can be reduced with an administrative adjustment because multifamily requires 1.25 parking spaces per efficiency in 1-bedroom dwelling unit, and 1.75 parking spaces per two-bedroom or larger dwelling unit. So the site would require a maximum of 5.25 parking spaces on this 0.14 acre lot on an MF18 zoning if it was approved. And in addition, if it was proposed, or if you did approve MF18 multifamily residential district, the applicant would have to adhere to the Wichita landscape ordinance and submit a landscape plan prior to the issuance of building permits. Just wanted to point out that it's in conformance with the Community Investments Plan, the Wichita Places for People Plan, and the Delano Neighborhood Plan. It is located within the Delano overlay and is subject to the Delano Neighborhood Design Guidelines. So the applicant has not submitted elevations. They submitted a site plan, but they haven't submitted elevations. So they'll be required to submit that to the planning department prior to the issuance of building permits. I did receive a phone call from a gentleman who lives nearby who was received a notification on this. He is concerned about the devaluation of his property with the MF18 zoning on there. And staff is recommending approval of the zone change request. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Question, go ahead,
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman.
Why are we asking for MF18 if they can only build up to TF3?
You have the option of approving either TF3 or MF18 for the zone change.
Because originally they misstated the amount of land they had.
But he can only build a duplex.
So
He can only
even
go
if
down.
even if MF18 is approved, he can only build 2 units. Staff wanted to make sure that if you approve TF3, then the parking requirement goes down and the requirement for landscaping and screening also no longer are required because it's TF3 zoning and not MF18 zoning.
So we wouldn't be adding MF18 to the, across the street, it's all TF3. So in this case, well, I guess it's MF18 to the north of it, or no, that's B. Is there any MF18 in the area?
I didn't see any MF18 in the area. I can look at the map really quickly.
The green properties to the west along Maple likely are MF18.
MF29, it looks like.
MF29. So you have B and MF29, which are higher density than the MF18 they're requesting.
So am I understanding correctly that whether we do MF18 or TF3, the maximum number of dwelling units is still going to be 2?
That's correct.
Okay.
That, and if we were to approve the MF18, then that would ratchet up the landscaping requirements
And parking requirements
and the
would be
parking
different.
requirements.
Yes.
Well,
Any
we're better
other
off with
questions
the
for
18
staff?
if we want landscaping, stuff like that.
Well, landscaping would be nice, but I'm thinking this is almost certainly going to end up as student housing, and I don't know that we need the parking requirements up to the MF18. Where are we on our are you still giving your report? We shouldn't be talking yet. Sorry.
Any other questions for staff from commissioners? Had you concluded your report? Did you have more,
Yes.
Christine?
I've concluded my report, yes.
Any questions from commissioners that are virtual? I've lost my checklist. Alrighty. Do we have any members of the public who would like to comment on this? No, we are missing something.
Applicant.
Pardon me? Applicant. Oh, the applicant or agent. Hello, thank you. Is the applicant or agent present? I forgot to ask that at the very beginning. I'm very sorry, Philip.
This is throwing you at the deep end and in at the deep end, Dan.
Hello.
Welcome to your
It's my first time, folks.
chairperson.
I beg forgiveness. So we don't have the applicant or agent online at this point.
Unfortunately, we do not see them on.
I am very sorry for that. To give a little time to see if we can reach that person, should we proceed to item 4.5, table 4.4?
We already voted
4.5
on
was taken on
4.5.
consent.
Pardon me?
4.5 was taken on consent.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Oh,
this
yeah,
is
that's
the
already
last
been
case.
consented. We call a 5-minute recess. Or are we ready to make a motion?
I'd like to use up some time with some discussion, if I may.
Is there anybody that wants to speak on this?
Any public members who would like to speak on this item? Virtually, is there anyone virtually who would like to speak on this item? Okay, let's return to commissioner discussion.
My discussion is whether it would be wiser to use MF18 or TF3 on this particular parcel of land, given that it's about half the size of what we originally thought it was. I'm sort of inclined toward TF3, but I'd like to hear some alternative views if there are any.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the TF3 also.
Well, can I make a motion, or are we still waiting for the applicant?
I have a question.
Okay.
If we go TF3, then there's no landscape required, which takes up a little less space and a little bit more money in the investment end of it. Is it going to cause a problem not to have any landscaping? Doesn't look like it from the aerial.
Be just another residential lot with two structures on it. Or
Yeah.
or a duplex, I guess.
If a single-family structure was built right now, it would not require the landscaping or the screening, which matches was on the rest of the block to the east and the south, in addition to the TF3 zoning on the west side of Meridian. None of them, if houses were to be rebuilt in the current zoning, would not be required to have landscaping.
Right.
Ready for a motion?
I think Scott's
Still trying to reach the
conversation with the
applicant.
guy.
It appears that there's a sidewalk on the adjacent property to the, on the adjacent property. Is the red line obscuring a sidewalk through this property, or?
Yes, it appears so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because this is on the path to school, right? We're giving Scott a little moment to see if he can get the applicant. Any other discussion from the commissioners while you're here? Do you want to rescind your first vote from the meeting?
Madam Chairman, you said you made a comment about past the school. What school are you talking about? One on Meridian and Maple or French University?
Both.
Well, French University is still south and east.
It's 1 block or 2 blocks east and not even a quarter block south to the parking lot of Friends University. You would walk east on Mentor, south on St. Clair, and then you'd be across the street from the university.
French University has property 1 block to the west. That's south of me. Also across the river.
That is correct.
All this purple is
If we don't. And you had one call and then the one attorney letter that we received in our packet.
Oh,
Is that
it's the same applicant.
same applicant?
Yeah.
Okay, so he called and had
Yes,
an attorney
that's
letter
correct.
sent. Okay. All right, no luck in,
I was able to get in touch with the applicant, and he's going to try and call in. So I gave him the phone number and the access code, so hopefully he should dial in the next
Okay.
minute or two.
Just to avoid the dead air, what's the light blue NR zone? That's a new one on me.
Neighborhood retail?
Neighborhood retail. What's that? Is there like,
I believe he may have joined.
hello,
Yeah, this is Rod Gray joining the call.
hello, can you give us your address, please?
I'm sorry.
Can you give us your address, your name and address, please?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing the call regarding 201 South Meridian Avenue, Wichita, Kansas.
And
And my name is Rod Gray.
will you, you have 10 minutes to tell us about the project you're planning on Maple and Meridian.
Okay, that project is it's a duplex, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, modern duplex, that will feature granite countertops and, updated, floor plan, open floor plan. And, it will have all upgrades in it, modern fixtures, throughout, the duplex. It's approximately 1,200 square feet, and, it's a 2-story duplex, that's similar to the one, in the area. And it will feature a car garage, detached garage, behind the duplex.
Can I ask if you have any objection to a TF3, which is a duplex zone, as opposed to an MF18?
You know, it's kind of, I'm a neophyte in rezoning, and I was, thought I should have done a TF3, but, I would have no objection to that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Hearing none?
Just want the applicant to understand that TF3 means that you will have the ability to have 2 living dwellings on that property. You would not be allowed to have any more than 2 dwellings spaces. Is that clear?
Well noted.
Okay, other questions? We ready? Can I entertain a motion on this item?
I would like to move that we approve a zone change to TF3 for this.
Whoop,
Ask for public comment.
Oh, thank you. God bless America.
Rookie.
Is there anyone online who would like to comment on this item? Anyone online who would like to comment on this item? Okay. And there's anyone in chambers who would like to speak on this item? Seeing no one in chambers. Anyone virtually who would like to speak on this item? 4.5 zoning change for 4.4 zoning change at the location of Maple and Meridian. Hearing none. I think we're ready to
I would
entertain
like
a
to make a motion that a zoning change be approved for the applicant parcel from its existing SF5 zoning to TF3 zoning.
We have a motion from Commissioner Foster, second.
Second.
From Commissioner Green. Any discussion on the matter? I'll call for a vote. All ayes for those who approve this motion.
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 12-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
And are there any non-public hearing items for this meeting? Praise the Lord. I will now move that we adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for your patient
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Oh my God.